All right, hello. Today we're going to be talking about subtracting decimals. Now the good news is if you can subtract integers, you can subtract decimals. We just got to pay attention to what place value they're in. So you can read this if you'd like. Ultimately, we're going to get straight on to the subtraction of things. So if we have 5 thousandths, which as you'll recall when we talk about the unit, we're using x's when we talk about thousandths. So we have 5 thousandths and we want to subtract off 2 thousandths. Ultimately that can be written as 0.005 minus 0.002 is 0.003. And when we subtract off, a lot of times we just do this. We circle it and cross it out saying we're taking it away. Right, so if I want to do this with 0.123, I can say that that is 1 flat, 2 rods, and 3 units. That's our 0.123. And I want to take away 0.102. That's 1 flat, 0 rods, and 2 units. And if I want to subtract those, then when we take them away, essentially I'm starting out with this idea. In fact, I'm just going to take this and we'll copy it and we'll put it right over here. I gotta drag it over, but so this is the original what we started with, and now we're going to take away what we don't want. So I got to get rid of one of these squares because this one here says take it away, so we'll get rid of it. It says get rid of these 2 units, so we'll get rid of those. And what we have left then, you can see I just have 2 rods and 1 unit left over, or in other words 0.0, 0 flats, 2 rods, and 1 unit, or 0.012. 0.012. All right, let's do a few of these together now. That was one. I would suggest maybe go through and try to do these 3. I'll work through them somewhat quickly, I guess, and we'll see how you do, see if you have any questions or if there's anything I can answer. So here I've got 1 whole, I've got 1 flat, and then 2 rods. What I'm trying to take away is 5 flats. And so that's what I'm going to subtract. Now here's the thing. Notice that if I'm trying to take all of these away from this, if I want to take them away from that, I don't have enough. So I actually need to convert this into 10 flats. Okay, so that means that instead of this one big hole there, I'll write 10 of these flats. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now I still have this other flat left over here. So there's that one, and then I have my two units. Now what I want to get rid of here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flats. We'll take those and get rid of them. And what I've got left then is 6 of these flats and 2 rods. And so we know that that's just 0.62. 0.62. Okay. All right. 0.843, that will be 8 flats. 4 rods and 3 units, and we'll take away 2, 1, and 7. There we go. And so when we go to take those away, what we're going to do is essentially take what we have here at the start. We'll just put it right in. Oops. Just put it right in there. And now if I want to start getting rid of these, I know I've got to get rid of 2 of those, so I'll get rid of those 2. Those are gone. All right, get rid of them. And then I've got 1 of these rods, so we'll take that and get rid of it. That's gone. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh man, I only got 3 of them here. So what I'm going to have to do is come back up here and I've got to convert one of these. So I'm going to change one of these rods, get rid of that, and I'm going to turn it into 10 units. Right? There. That rod turned into all of those units. Now I can take away 7 of the units. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There. I can get rid of those. And then what I have left is I've got 6 of these flats. I've got 2 of the rods, and I've got 6 of these units left over. There we go. So that's going to be 0.626 will be our answer for that. Okay, last one. 0.223, this again, if you haven't been doing this, it's great to pause and try to work ahead and try to do this on your own. Okay, so definitely try to do that if you haven't. All right, now I can see that when I go to try to take away from this, I don't have enough. So that means I've got to turn one of these rods into 10 of these x's. Right? And so if I do that, then I can say I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10, and then I still have my original 3 x's here. Okay, so that'll be good. Then I can also see that I'm going to be taking 4 rods away, but I only got 1 here. So I guess I'm going to have to get rid of this, and I'm going to make 10 rods. Right? So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus the original 1 that I still had over there. And then I still have 1 of these flats. So what I've done is I've kind of converted everything. Now I can go through and do some canceling out. I want to get rid of 4 units. Okay. How about these 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. I want to get rid of 5 of these. Easy peasy. Here's a group of 5. It doesn't matter which 5 you take. We'll get rid of those. Now what I've got left is 1 flat. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rods. And then I've got, looks like 8 units. There we go. So this gets us 0.178. Now, you may already know how to do this subtraction, and you might not have to do all these pictures, and that's just fine. You don't necessarily need to. Okay? The standard subtraction algorithm is that we line things up, and we're going to borrow whenever we're trying to take a bigger number away from a smaller. This shouldn't be a totally new concept. We've done this with integers before, and now we're just doing it with some decimals involved too. So if I want to subtract 0.223 and 0.045, the first thing that I'll do is line everything up, keep the decimals lined up, and then line up all the other place values. Now 3 is not big enough to take 5 away from it. So what I have to do is I have to come over and I'm going to borrow from this. I'm going to convert one of these rods. I'm actually going to convert it into 10 units. So I'm going to add 10 more units to the 3 that's here, and we'll take all this together and we'll actually turn it into 13. 13 minus 5 is 8. Okay? 1 minus 4. Well, I can't do that. 4 is too big for 1. So I've got to actually come over, and we're going to borrow from this. We're going to convert one of these flats into 10 rods. So it's like putting 10 more over here. 10 and 1 makes 11. Usually people just write it like that as 11. I just wanted to show you it's actually 10 plus 1. So 11 minus 4 is 7. And then 1 minus 0 is 1. 0.178. Okay? So borrowing that you may have been told in the past, borrowing, it really is just the same as as decomposing or converting one of the larger units down into a smaller unit. Okay. A few words to keep in mind, just like before, a few of these are going to kind of mean you're swapping things around. Minus 10 minus 3, we just write it in that order. 10 minus 3. If you see less, 8 less 4. Now this is kind of a weird one. It's not as common for us to say this. At least I don't know many people that say it that way, but it is still appropriate. 8 less 4 means starting with 8 and then take away 4. Lessen it by 4. Less than, so 2 less than 9, this is one of them that's got to get swapped around. This one gets changed. This is in a different order. 2 less than 9 means start with 9 and then take away 2 from it. That's an important one. The difference between just means to subtract. Decrease by just means subtract, keep it in that order. And this last one down here, subtract from, right? Subtract blank from this. So subtract 11 from 20. That means that we actually are going to start with 20 and take 11 away. Keep those in mind as you're reading whenever you're doing word problems. Okay? Let's get to it. I can't take 3 or 9 away from 3, so I've got to come over to this 6, convert it down to 5. And then I add 10 to this. So 10 and 3 makes 13. Right? I converted one of these flats into 10 rods, and I added it to the 3 rods that were already there. That's how I got 13. 5 minus 1 is 4, and now I get 0.44. Over here, once again, I can't do this, so I've got to borrow. So I'll come over here to the 7, and that will make this into 8. This becomes 13 then. 13 minus 5 is 8. Whoops, that shouldn't be an 8. That should be a 6, huh? There we go. Because we had to borrow from it, so it's going to decrease it by 1. Now 6 minus 8, that doesn't work, so I've got to come over here to the 2 and make that 1, and then we'll just add 10 to that 6, so now it's 16. Sorry for that very ugly 16. 16 minus 8 is 8, 1 minus 1 is 0, and then we keep the decimal right in the same place. So 0.088. Okay, a lot of these have a lot of borrowing in them, so you got to keep track on things. Okay, let's maybe see if we can't zoom in on that. Okay, that's a little better. Now we have a little more room to work. 5 minus 6, that's no good. So I'm going to come over right next to it, and we'll actually borrow from the 4. We're going to turn that into 3, and we're going to add 10 to this, so that's 15. 15 minus 6 is 9. 3 minus 7 doesn't work, so I've got to come over here, change that 6. I'm going to lessen the 6 by 1 to make it 5, and I'll carry one of those over to make that 13. 13 minus 7 is 6. 5 minus 3 is 2, and then 3. 3.269. Okay. Let's just say zoomed in, we have a little bit more room to work. Maybe these are a little easier for you to see. What is 0.16 less 0.05? Okay, if you look back up at your chart, 0.16 less 0.05, that means you just keep it in that order. 0.16 minus 0.05. So this will then become, as we write it vertically, 0.16 minus 0.05. You know, another way to think about this, some people take borrowing to the extreme. Look at this. You don't necessarily, well, this one doesn't need borrowing, but this is really just 16 minus 5, right? That's just 0.0, no, wait a minute. What am I doing? We don't have to borrow. This is just 6 minus 5 is 1. 1 minus 0. There we go. 0.11. That's it. Okay. What is 0.15 less than this? Notice this has less than. That was one of them where we got to switch it around. So this means 0.23 minus 0.15. I'll go ahead and write them in order, 0.23 minus 0.15. Now, this is what I was getting at in the last problem, and I was just jumped the gun a little bit. Some people look at this and they say, oh, I've got to borrow. I'm going to come over here and take this 1, turn this into 13, 13 minus 1. And you can do that. That's just fine. But you can also think of this as 23 minus 15 is 8. Right? Yeah, I mean, but we don't necessarily have to borrow every single time if you can just kind of compare these. 23 hundredths minus 8 or minus 15 hundredths is 8 hundredths or 0.08. Of course, you can borrow if you need to. What is 1.23 decreased by? Okay, we look back up before, nothing needs changing, so this is 1.23 minus 0.57. We'll do this as 1.23 minus 0.57. And this is a little bit harder. I think I probably would borrow as you're doing this one. So I'll come over here. I can't take 7 away from 3, so I'll make that 1, and this becomes 13. 13 minus 7 is 6. That's easy enough. And here, I could just treat this like it's 11 minus 5 is 6. Done. If you don't see it that way, if you don't see 11 take away 5, then what you could do is come over here and borrow from this and turn this one in. Oh, look, there's 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. Okay? So I just like showing you guys different ways of thinking about some of these things, I guess. Okay, 2 more. Got a couple word problems here. You buy a toaster for $16.83. How much change will you receive if you paid with a $20 bill? Well, that means subtraction. 20 minus 1683. Yeah, we have computers to do this for us. It's good for good brain exercise. A lot of times when people count change like this, they actually just kind of round this up to the next dollar and make it 17. Or what you'll see them do is they'll give you the change first. They'll give you the pennies and stuff first. And they'll say, oh, you know what? 17 cents takes this up to the next dollar. So 17 cents makes it $17. And then now, 18, 19, 20. So $3.17 change. Now we can do this with, by subtracting. I'll come over here and I'll borrow. I'm just saying a lot of times pay attention to how people count change to you. They'll give you the change back take you up to the next dollar, and then they'll count the dollars. It's a nice way of doing things when you're working with money. But what we're going to do is I'm actually going to make all these 9s and this last one a 10. It's kind of the fast way of doing this. 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 8 is 1. 9 minus 6 is 3. 1 minus 1 is 0. $3.17. You bought a 5.3 pound roast and then you trimmed some fat. 4.6 pounds remained. How much fat did you trim? Well, when we trim, that's subtraction. So we have 5.3, and we took away some fat to get 5.3. We ended up with 4.6, but if we subtract these, our starting minus our finishing, then we can see what we actually cut off and what we threw away. That's 7, and 4 minus 4 is 0. So we actually threw away a half a pound of fat, right? A little bit more than half a pound, so 7/10 of a pound. Okay, just a couple more problems to look at, and then we're going to be done for today. This is just kind of a combination of zoom. Let's go back to page width of addition and subtraction, because now we're adding and subtracting negative numbers. The rules were the same for decimals as what they are for integers. So whenever you add negative numbers, if you're adding numbers with different signs, it's like subtraction. And then you keep the sign of the one that has the larger absolute value. So in this case, 19 is larger than 8, so we'll keep the sign negative. If you're adding that have the same sign, you just keep the sign. Okay. If you're subtracting integers, well, minus and negative becomes plus a positive. And if you're just subtracting, then you just got to see which one is which one's bigger. And you'll keep that sign. Okay, so here we go. I've got 0.235 plus negative 0.049. This ultimately ends up being just a regular old subtraction problem. 0.235 minus 0.049. Okay, so this will turn into, we got to do some borrowing. 15 minus 9 is 6. Now I've got 22 minus 4 is going to be 18. You could also borrow that and convert them if you wanted. There we go. This next one, notice that I'm actually taking the bigger number is negative and the larger number, and this number, I should say the larger absolute value, and this one's negative. 0.43, that was positive. So I'm going to subtract these, and I'm going to put this one on top and actually subtract 0.43 from it. Okay, then I know that my answer is going to end up being negative. So we'll come up here, 5 minus 0 is just 5, nothing to do there. Then I can make this 0, make this 9, and make this 10. You could make this one 10, and then you have to come back and borrow from it and make it 9 and make that one 10. I just usually will go 9s all the way down and then make the last one 10. There we go. And oh, wait a minute here. And then the thing is, this one was negative, so we said our answer will be negative, so negative 0.575. Done. And this next one, you can see we actually have two negative numbers that we're going to be adding together, so we're going to keep that sign. I already know my answer is going to be negative. So I'll just take 0.2 plus 0.2, and that will make 0.4. I know that it's going to be negative, so it'll be negative 0.4 or negative oops. Like I said, some people would much prefer to write it negative 0.4. I don't always put my zeros on there. A lot of people really like that. Okay, minus and negative. This is where we're going to turn these into plus a positive. So I get 0.354 plus 0.167. Regular old decimal addition. 4 and 7 makes 11, so we'll do that. 6 and 5 is 11, and 1 makes 12, so we'll do that. Carry 1, and that's 5. 0.521. Down here, minus negative, or I should say negative 2 minus 0.54. Notice they have the same signs. And when they have the same signs, we're just going to end up adding them. I see they're both negative, so my answer will ultimately be negative. I hope you guys see what's happening here. This is 2.00. This is just 0.54. We get 2.54. Remember, our answer will be negative because they were both negative. Now, on the last one, yes, they're both negative, but look, we got to take care of this guy first. Minus negative turns this into plus a positive. So what I have, I'll rewrite it, negative 0.45 plus 0.45, or 0.45. Well, they're just opposites. That's just going to be 0. You can subtract them if you want. I hope this is helpful. Get lots of practice in. The great thing about these is you can check them with a calculator. You can always double check my work, see if I did it right. But you can double check your work too and see if you did it right. Okay, get some good practice with decimals. Good luck.